This episode is brought to you by 180 Markets, where it is our goal to bring every individual, fund manager, family office, or any qualified investor access to Australian Stock Exchange capital raises. If you are ever interested in how to access ASX capital raises in a super simple way, 180 Markets is for you. The sign-up process is easy. You just upload your ID, proof of your investor status, and your current brokerage account information. The settlement of shares goes right into your existing account, and you can access our very next capital raise. If you're interested in free, easy access to thousands of ASX capital raises, including placements, IPOs, reverse takeovers, and more, check out 180markets.com.au. Welcome again, another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Investors, I always say it, but in medicine, we are in the golden age. In fact, I just read over the weekend, human genome. It used to take 10 years and a couple of $1 billion to map yourselves out. Now, for $200, 30 minutes later, you can know so much about yourself. The changes that we've made are incredible. We are going big game hunting. And with us today, we have, again, Richard Hopkins of Zelira Therapeutics, and he certainly is going big game hunting. Friends, we know the current system doesn't work. We want to get better treatment for chronic pain, for autism, and other products. So much more out there. And with us to talk all about these changes and how Zelira is helping improving the world and how 2021 is going to be even better. Richard, welcome to the show.
Greg, great to be back and nice to talk to you again. We enjoyed the last conversation we had.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, Richard, for those of us that are the people out there that are just not quite as familiar with Zelira as they should be, can you just give a couple-minute background on the company?
So Zelira Therapeutics is a unique global biopharmaceutical company addressing the key unmet need for medically validated medicinal cannabis products. We're unique in the sense that we have a global footprint with operations based in the United States and Australia. And that gives us access to the world's largest and fastest growing cannabis markets, which is very exciting because it means we can move very quickly from product development to marketing on a global basis. We're also developing multiple product lines, which we've started to turn or bring to market over the last 6 months. And that's been transformational again for the company. All of the products target very large unmet needs in large addressable markets. And we can do that on a global basis. So it's been really, really exciting, I think, to be able to transform some of the outcomes of the clinical data we've been generating into marketable product opportunities, which are now in the hands of patients, all within the face of 6 to 9 months. It's quite amazing.
Absolutely. And I suppose, again, just to maybe bring it back a second, 2020, we're coming to the end of the year. This has been a year like no other. And for Zelira, it's been truly transformational. Can you just maybe give investors some highlights of the last 12 months for you?
I think you're absolutely correct. I think it has been a transformational 12 months. We merged around this time last year with an American company called Zelira Therapeutics. Fantastic team. They just themselves completed an amazing transaction in the US, one of the largest, where they'd sold their vertically integrated cannabis business. But they were very keen to better leverage their pharmaceutical expertise and repivot and apply all of that capability to really an area they felt was the next space that medicinal cannabis is going to move, and that's into the clinical validation realm. Okay, bringing validated products into the hands of patients, which are on the path to registration. And that's really the trajectory we're on at the moment. So once we'd undertaken the merger, as I mentioned, that gave us access to global markets, but it also gave us access to a really rich portfolio of products, which we started to bring to market over the past 6 months. These include the world's most clinically validated product for insomnia, chronic insomnia, very large addressable market. Around 10% of the population suffer from chronic insomnia, and around 20% of those will fail all existing medications. So there's a huge slice of the population, around 2%, which are potentially receptive to our Zenivol formulation, which addresses a key unmet need. We've also brought to market a product which has been in development initially in the United States, but now in Australia. It's Hope for autism. Very, very interesting area. Again, huge unmet need in this population. where existing medications really don't cut the mustard in many respects. There's only 2 approved drugs out there for autism in most parts of the world. And we need new drugs to try and, I think, improve the behaviours and quality of life for those patients and their families. That has hit the market with a bang in the United States. So we launched that just over a year ago, the Hope product range in Pennsylvania initially. That's now got into the hands of 10,000 patients already for a niche indication. We think that's quite remarkable. It highlights, again, the uptake is really quick where you address a key unmet need. We've since launched that product along with the Zenabol product in Australia, and we're only just now starting to put that into the hands of patients here. And from Australia, we're in a single manufacturing base. We'll be able to take that to the rest of the world, including Germany, Southeast Asia, the United Kingdom, and even parts of South America. Well, again, all from a single manufacturing facility here. So it starts to become super efficient in terms of how we manage that process.
Absolutely. And maybe, just drilling into the product suites, you've mentioned insomnia and autism, maybe if we could just start out with autism, your Hope product. Can you just describe, again, go a little bit deeper as far as where does your Hope product fit into the portfolio, and what is the current state, and maybe what we should look for over the next couple of years?
So happy to expand initially on Hope. So autism is a really challenging area. I think it requires both really good medications, but also good behavioural support to change ultimately how these kids, which have really lifelong challenges, can better integrate into society and limit the effect in terms of cost for us, but also for the parents. So where Hope is positioned is that we recognise very early on that even with the 2 medications that are approved, whilst they can have really good efficacy for treating patients, they come with a lot of side effects. They put on weight, they can impact the liver. There's some toxicity associated with these. It has a black label warning in some cases. So there's a real balance that patients and doctors are struggling with in this, but how much and how long do we give it to our child for? Because ultimately it's going to be harmful. So that's a concern that we felt we could step into or alongside with cannabis, which, its hallmark is it's incredibly safe at this point in time. Yet its efficacy features seem to complement what these other drugs are currently doing as well. It reduces irritability, helps improve sleep, reduces anxiety. And if we can do that well enough, then the behavioural supports that are often added, facilitated through interactions with psychologists and so on, can really be better leveraged to much greater effect. So it becomes a win-win for both groups. So that's where we feel that the Hope portfolio sits alongside the existing suite of medications. It doesn't have to replace any. It works alongside, it's safe, and it adds value to the way that those therapies are trying to work to then get improvement out of the behavioural changes we're also trying to bring to bear with those children. So that's
right.
a holistic view.
Exactly. It's like a 1 + 1 = 3, so to speak. And I think that so many of us that have any type of longer term medical issue know today that it's not just one little thing that makes it all happen. It's a whole, as you said, it's a holistic approach.
Correct.
And in the states of Pennsylvania and Louisiana, as you said earlier, so far the results have been really outstanding. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's measured by patient take-up. I think it's within we've licensed it to a company in Pennsylvania who's been manufacturing it obviously under license. They were the first to get their hands on the product after it was launched. And I think they've been blown away by how successful it's been. Again, for a niche indication, the patient take-up has been extraordinary. Over 10,000 patients, we understand, in Pennsylvania in the last 12 months. So I think that's reflective of the unmet need, but I think it's also reflective of the fact that the product we've developed has been tailored. We developed it in conjunction with the autism community, and we've tailored it specifically for their needs. And that makes it very different to any other cannabis product. So we've flavored it, for example, because these kids have very sensitive taste components. We've changed the composition of the cannabinoids to match exactly what parents said worked most effectively. Okay, and we've offered a range of formulations to hit those endpoints based on the data that they gave us. And we've added other components which, again, seem to enhance the effect of the drug. So it's really tailored quite specifically for that population. And I think that's something else that the market has recognized.
Yeah, so it's very iterative, I suppose. You're always getting feedback and improving and so forth and so on.
Correct.
And then In 2021, what would you hope, no pun intended, that's terrible, hope to see out of Hope over the next 12 months?
So I think what's really exciting for us, and where I think as a company we can highlight, if you like, another key benefit to the merger, is that we can build on all of the fantastic work that has been led by our American colleagues, okay, to get this product to market, to learn from the patient experience, and put it into a more formal regulatory setting we have in Australia, which obviously is a much more regulated market. It's harder in some respects for patients and doctors to be able to prescribe these products. It means we have to take a much more data-driven medical approach to marketing these products. But everything we do here in that regard then adds value further back to the American side of things and further differentiates the product there. So we've announced late this year that following the launch of Hope in Australia, we're going to be launching an observational clinical trial, okay? And the idea, and a large one, 160 patient observational trial. And the idea there was it allows us to fast track engagement with all of the stakeholders, the prescribers, the patients, the caregivers, and the associated or the allied health components as well, all of which are required for this holistic approach to autism. So we're going to be undertaking one of the world's largest studies, and we're going to be doing it in a formal clinical setting, which allows all these stakeholders to engage constructively. What was exciting was that we only announced that we were launching and the observational trial was coming out, and we had well over 100 expressions of interest without any advertising from patients wanting to participate in the trial.
I'm not surprised.
That just replicates what we've seen in the US. So we expect the trial is going to be filled very quickly. And then again, we're going to be expanding the patient base in Australia, collecting data all the while, which will inform our clinical development strategy down the track.
Yeah, and I think it also goes to, Zelira's overall medically validated products, if you will. That's the backbone, I suppose, of all your products, and it just gives further credence to that. And then, moving on to the another huge unmet need, can we just talk a little bit more about insomnia, chronic, sleep issues? Obviously, we all know about it. We know about how terrible we feel, but how Zelira fits in again.
So again, we've taken a very similar strategy with the sleep product, where we can leverage, if you like, the regulatory environment in Australia to value add by adding clinical data, clinical validation to these products. That has a number of benefits. Firstly, it differentiates our products from all the other cannabis products in the market. There are very few which have clinical data attached to them. That then allows us to address an unmet need in chronic insomniac patients very specifically. As I said before, 10% of your population suffers from chronic insomnia, and 1 in 5 of those will fail all existing medications, so nothing works. And that's 2% of your population today are potentially can be accessed and may be open to using a product like Zenivol. That's a very large market. So to further add to that, what's really exciting in terms of our commercialization or marketing strategy is that it allows us now to approach the whole prescribing community, okay, all 100%, predicated on the basis that we have very specific data that addresses an unmet need in their patient groups. So where about 3% of prescribers are prescribing medicinal cannabis in Australia today, we're taking our product to the remaining 97%. And we feel that's where the best growth opportunity in the market is, because we only have to be a little bit successful to be very right at the revenue end. And the feedback we're getting from practitioners is absolutely fantastic. We identify the patient when we come into the call. You only have 10 minutes to speak to a doctor for the most part, so you're going to be very quick. We then talk about the data that we've generated from the phase 2 clinical trial we ran earlier this year, which met all of its clinical endpoints for safety and efficacy. That takes just a couple more minutes, and only at the end of that conversation do we mention that this is even a cannabis drug. It's not really relevant. It's about data, addressing the unmet need, and identifying the patients. And the traction, the response we're getting based on that, if you like, call flow approach has been incredibly impressive, very exciting.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, that's very similar to any type of drug where, doctors are busy, you only have a very short window of time, they have a problem, you're trying to figure out a solution and explain to them in minutes. But timing is everything in life. And also with cannabis, there have been so many positive new developments. Can you maybe even talk about, in the last number of weeks even, say what has gone on at the United Nations and the EU, maybe just touch on them for investors that don't know?
Yeah, thanks I think what we've seen over the last few weeks is the culmination of 10 years of hard work from governments and people and investors trying to, I think, really take cannabis mainstream. We've been held back by a lot of legal limitations and regulatory requirements, quite justifiably so. But I think the last 3 weeks have seen three critical outcomes transpire, which if you're an investor, you need to be looking at, because this is going to be game changing potentially for the cannabis industry. So the first of these was the United Nations Commission on Narcotics Drugs has made a recommendation that cannabis be removed from Schedule 4, which is the toughest list of legal restriction. That's where it sits alongside cocaine and heroin and all these other trafficable drugs, and has taken off that list entirely. And at most, it might be on a Schedule 1, which is a very low-level schedule. So while that's not binding, a lot of governments around the world will take guidance from that recommendation, and so start to lower the, if you like, the very restrictive access that patients have based on these legal requirements. That is a huge step forward for the cannabis sector. And I think you'll see a trickle-down effect to governments around the world over the next 6 to 12 months. And just to illustrate that, the United States, which has cannabis obviously listed in the top category, they call it a Schedule 1 drug alongside cannabis and heroin and cocaine. They've just approved at the House of Representatives level the MORE Act. This is the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement, funny name, piece of legislation. And that seeks to decriminalise cannabis at the federal level entirely. That's game changing again in the United States. That opens up the whole market for investors, pharma companies, etc. If this progress continues at the Senate level, we expect that will continue. I think there's reasonably strong bipartisan support, but over the next 6 to 12 months, we're optimistic that we might see a complete rescheduling in the United States. If we can get through the Senate substage for cannabis, which is a landmark decision. And I think supporting that, just before those decisions came through a couple of weeks ago, the EU Court of Justice, and again, in another landmark decision, confirmed that CBD itself, it's a non-psychoactive part of cannabis, is not a narcotic, and it therefore can be traded freely between all the EU states. So that's dealt with a lot of the, addressed a lot of the legal grey area that CBD in particular was sitting in EU, and has opened up and I think added certainty to that market, which again is set to explode in Europe. And we have a position there as we're developing hemp-derived CBD products in Europe and the US. So I mean, already in the space of 3 or 4 weeks, there are significant decisions which are going to have a huge impact on the investment opportunity for cannabis globally.
Yeah, and also I think that the intersection of, you know, Zelira and these decisions is that these decisions have opened up the world, and at the same time, Zelira's clinical validated data almost fits into that opening perfectly, if you will. It's de-risked.
Yeah, so, no, you're absolutely true. If and when the United States, for example, deschedules, what they're going to give access to, much as they've done for CBD, is their regulatory agencies like the FDA to gain for the first time complete oversight of the sector. The FDA, as it does, like the TGA here, will be imposing its will on the sector and demanding that companies demonstrate or show that they've got clinical data to support the medical claims attached to their products. We'll be one of the few in the world able to do that, simply because in the United States, they haven't been able to progress their clinical programs because of those federal prohibitions. So we think companies like Zelira, with exposure to the US as well as the EU, are really perfectly positioned to see the upside as these decisions start to come through the legal system over the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely. And also over the next 6 to 12 months, you are not stopping for a second at your 2 products. Can you just talk about the pipeline, the oral space and everything? It's really incredible.
So we're, I think, going to be focused in the context of Zenivol and autism. We're going to be leveraging the opportunity in Australia to add significant real-world patient data to the clinical data packs that we have. That's very fast, very rapid, and it can be done while you're making revenues. So we're really excited that we can bring that to bear in Australia, Germany, the UK, as well as the United States. But supporting, if you like, our lead products, Zenivol and Hope, Greg's correct. We've just announced a launch in the United States, a CBD-containing toothpaste. And you may laugh and say, come on, CBD, what's a natural product? But actually, that whole sector is a premium branded proprietary toothpaste. It's exploding in the US. Colgate's been active with a number of acquisitions. So we feel, again, we're moving to a transactional realm. We'll support their products with mouthwashes and so on, where there's some evidence that CBD can help reduce the antimicrobial load and so on. So we're really excited about that. We've got a dermatology line coming out, which has been 2 years in development. That's hep-derived CBD. It's going to be complemented by a play into peripheral arterial disease, more clinically focused. And we've got a clinical study for chronic pain we're launching with Levin in some point next year. We announced that early this year, and that's been advancing, and we'll make further announcements on that over the next 6 months. But obviously, chronic pain's the most active area where say medicinal cannabis is used. That's going to be a cracking phase 2 study we'll do with Levin.
Right. So it's amazing. You can have, is this right, up to 15 products in the marketplace over the next 12 months?
Yeah, depending on how things pan out, we could have potentially a portfolio of up to 15 different products towards the end of next year, which is quite remarkable for a company that had one ostensibly just over 12 months ago. So we're still very much on the aggressive expansion phase at the moment. And then we'll start to build those out and monetize all those assets in global markets. And I think that should, really put us on a rapid trajectory to generating significant revenues over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months.
Sure, because these are big targets: autism, chronic pain, oral care. These are not little niche products, if you will, by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, it really, the last 12 months has been great. Obviously, you've given us what the next 12 months can be, look for Zelira and frankly, for the entire medical community, if you will. I mean, we can look forward to, better results in autism, better results with chronic pain, so many issues. Any closing words for the audience?
No, thank you again for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to speak to you guys. We had a great response. We appreciated all the feedback after the last presentation. I'm excited to be talking to you about cannabis, particularly on the back of all these legal changes. I think the tailwinds on this sector are just going to get stronger and stronger. So I look forward to speaking to Greg and giving you an update with some more good news in hopefully a few months' time.
Thanks, Richard. Be well.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching another presentation by 180 Markets. Don't forget, if you want access to thousands of ASX capital raises, head on over to 180markets.com.au, sign up, and get on board for our very next capital raise. Thanks for watching.